following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Golenbock University. I'm Ralph Tyko of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and Peter is here. But before I introduce him for this evening, I'd like to introduce a first-timer to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Diane Firstman. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Peter. Thank you for the invite, and I enjoy listening to the podcast, and I'm happy to be here.
Beautiful. And we have a returnee who has been dubbed the third baseball Meshuggah on this podcast. Al Blumkin is back. How are you, Al?
Hello there, everybody.
Good. Good that you're okay. And
sound good. Sound good, Al.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. He's in good voice.
Good.
Damon Runyon is pulling the strings, but Alan is a throwback. Diane, he's a baseball encyclopedia.
So I've heard.
Living baseball encyclopedia. So it'll be fun tonight. Peter, Diane is writing a baseball book, and
I want to hear about it.
The subject interested me, and I want to hear about the process, and I want you to Diane, milk Peter a little bit. He's written a baseball book or two, and he may be able to give you something to go by. So, Diane, first, the name of the book.
Well, the name of the book has actually not been officially formulated yet. I'm taking suggestions from various people as to what we should be calling the book.
Well, what's it about?
Well, basically, it is. I've always had a fascination with baseball player names, whether they are.
Oh, yes. I've been following you on Facebook with the names.
Yes, you have.
Yes, I have. Yes.
And
yes, I made a suggestion.
That is why I got you guys together.
I made a suggestion to you what you ought to call it. Very simply, not the cockamamie things you wanted to call it.
Oh, well.
You should call it from, what was the other one? From the Babe to another very popular, very recent nickname. You remember my post? You remember what it was? I remember what it was. Bill Lee. It was From the Babe to the Spaceman. The history of crazy names in baseball. And people will buy it because they know who the Babe is. They know who the Spaceman is. You know, not Zachary Taylor, Jebediah, somebody or other who you've never heard of.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay. How did this passion for names come about?
Well, when you have a name like Firstman and you grow up in the 60s and early 70s, you get kidded a lot about being the first man on the moon. And I had to live with that, but I always loved baseball, and I've always been big on words and wordplay and puns and spoonerisms and things of that nature. And I just, some names are just lyrical to me. They just sing.
Definitely. Absolutely right.
Like John Boccabella, Pete Incaviglia, Porfi Altamirano. I mean, these are names that they have a resonance beyond just what they do on the baseball field. They, and it's not necessarily limited to baseball, but of course my passion is baseball, so I focus on baseball names. And I've always had an interest in names and etymologies and not even just nicknames, but in some cases you have the birth name, the name they were given at birth, which is quite unusual, like Odeby McDowell. There's only one Odeby that I know of, and it happens to be Odeby McDowell.
Right.
And
so can you
he was named after his father, who happens to be Odeby Sr. So Yeah.
Okay.
So these names have stuck with me as long as I've been a baseball fan, and that's over 45 years now. And I had an idea of doing this book about 6 years ago, and I approached John Thorne, and he put me in touch with a couple of publishers, and they said,
very good.
They said, we'd love the concept, but it's not going to sell. And I'm like, okay. And this was
30 years ago, it would have sold. But publishers today don't know what the hell they're doing. They have no idea. So their answer to almost everybody who isn't John Grisham, the answer is it won't sell. Unfortunately, that's the shame of it.
Right. Well, I accepted. I got a couple of those answers from a couple of different publishers, and I thanked John for his help. And I sort of put the project on the side. I still did work on researching famous baseball player names. One of my favorites is Briss Lord, who is an old-time baseball player. His given name is Bristol Robotham Lord. And
fabulous.
even better, his nickname is the Human Eyeball, which is just a wondrous little factoid that, it lends such charm to baseball and its history that, I became quite enamored with these names, and I wanted to research them. So I did it for my own blog. I put together a great names in baseball history sort of subcategory on my blog, and I did it from time to time. And at the same time, I was also collecting baseball cards, and I was collecting, I usually go and collect certain people. So I was focused on Sandy Koufax, and I collected all Sandy Koufax cards, and then I was looking for something else to collect and looking at, well, can I broaden my horizons in terms of what I collect out there? And I said, well, why don't I collect the cards of the names of players that I love, whether it's Urban Shocker or Van Lingle Mungo and things of that nature. So in doing that,
great song was that. That was a terrific song.
Yes, it was.
Melody and what have you.
Mm-hmm. So
how many pages have you written?
Well, I've got 10 names so far. I'm hoping to do 100 to 150.
Oh, you've just started.
I just started. Yes. This is in its infancy. This is why I'm soliciting on Facebook and on my Twitter account as to have people submit names that they want to see written up or think are memorable for various reasons. And I'm also looking for, book titles and things of that nature. I'm making a very social media event, as it were, in terms of generating ideas.
At the New York Regional in 1995, because that was the winter of the strike, I went through the whatever baseball encyclopedia was available at that time, and I did a whole project and a talk on players that were named after famous people.
Okay.
I found a whole bunch of George Washingtons that basically stopped after World War I. I found one Abraham Lincoln. Any branch, I found, people were named after famous inventors. All the ones in the Hispanic ones who were named Francis Xavier. All that kind of thing.
Well,
I don't have it anymore because I moved a couple of times since then, and whatever list I had is, gone with the wind.
Uh-huh. Well, one of my favorites in that realm is Cal McClish.
Oh, yeah, Cal McClish, Julius Caesar, Tuskahoma McClish.
Right. There's
I just found another one,
Woody Woodward. With his name. Yeah.
Woody Woodward, who was Woody Woodward, I think, during World War II, whose full name was Woodrow Wilson Woodard, or whatever his name, His infield for Woody Williams, I think it was. It's Woodrow Wilson Williams.
Well, yeah, so getting back to the story, I was looking at various people to collect cards of, and one of the first ones I thought of was Urban Shocker, one-time pitcher for the Yankees.
Good luck finding his card.
I actually did.
You did? Oh, very good. Which card was it? This is from 1926, 1927. He died about 1931. He didn't live.
I died in 1928. Died right after that year's World Series. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what kind of car did you find?
I found one from, let me see, I've got his St. Louis Browns card from Nielsen's Chocolate.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So I was happy to pick up an Urban Shocker card. So in researching Urban Shocker, lo and behold, somebody has already written a book called, and I quote, The Urban Shocker All-Stars 100 Greatest Baseball Names Ever by a fellow named Damon Golzinski. So I was like, okay, and I looked through the book, and I'm like, yeah, that's sort of my concept there, but I can add various other aspects to it because I feel like I have a passion for names, and I can probably put a spin on things, and I can do anagrams and factoids and etymologies of names, and I can add more and a different voice to some of the names, and perhaps come up with different names that weren't in his original book. And so that's where the genesis of the project has formed. And like I said, I've just started working on it in the past couple of weeks.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yep.
Peter, what would you suggest for her?
Doing it faster. After 3 weeks, you've got 10 names. It seems to me after 3 weeks, you should have 100 names.
Well, I have a bunch of names to work through, but it does take a little while to research them via, various, reference books and etymologies and things of that nature. And I do have a full-time job, so this is a weekend and nighttime. This is a weekend and nighttime-ish
I see. Okay.
Passion for me.
Okay.
So. Okay. Are you in journalism?
No, actually, I'm not. I'm a career civil servant for the city of New York.
Oh, very nice.
I'm a data analyst. I crunch numbers for a living.
Oh, terrific.
Okay. That's honorable.
Yes, it's I have my 30 years in. I could retire now if I wanted to, but I keep going. So
excellent.
Yeah. Keep going. Living in New York. Are you still in Jackson Heights? Is what I'd like to know.
Well, I was born and raised in Jackson Heights, and I moved out of Jackson Heights. I was living with my mother. My first apartment was in Sunnyside, Queens. Then I moved out to, was it Sunnyside? No, I first moved out to Fresh Meadows, and then to Sunnyside, and then to Park Slope, and now I'm in Forest Hills.
Oh, beautiful.
So I spent the first half of my life so far in Jackson Heights, and I grew up half a block from the Physicians Hospital there, which Ralph knows about.
Very close to Junior High School 145, where I went.
Yes.
Went and right on my paper route, 74th Street. When I was growing up, I delivered the post, and Peter would enjoy this because one of my first interviews was with Leonard Coppett.
Sure.
And I told Leonard Coppett that we both have something in common, that we both worked for the Post. I joking around. He says, surely you had the most important job of the two of us. And I said, no, Leonard, I think you had the most important job, but he meant just getting the paper there was just delivering it. What's your next project, Peter? We'll get off the subject a little bit. What are you writing?
Well, I just submitted a proposal that I'm doing with a woman who, with her husband, went to Afghanistan. Now, why in the world they went to Afghanistan, I'm still trying to figure it out. But after 2 days of being in Afghanistan, they were kidnapped by the Taliban. They're Canadian. or he's Canadian. She's from Pennsylvania, but he married her. But she married him. And during the 5 years they were captive by the Taliban, she gave birth to 4 children. Whoa. And it's a story about what she endured from both the Taliban and her very, very abusive husband. That's one of the things I'm working on right now.
Very
and the other thing I'm working on, I'm doing a book with Richard Painter. Richard Painter, who was the ethics in charge of ethics for.
I've seen him on Bill Maher's show a few times.
Yes, he was the George W. Bush ethics guy.
Yeah.
Who was often on MSNBC and on CNN. And we're doing a book on history of the rule of law. And part of the book we're on now is on how Trump absolutely destroys it.
You can send a copy to the White House?
Absolutely. Yes, we will. Yes.
Right.
That's what I'm working on.
I know our time is limited tonight.
Yes, it is limited.
Of the Golden Globes. I just want to go around the room and offer this random question as to what you guys think, excuse me, Diane, what you people think of the how the end game will go for the aforementioned bloated orange human being. I'll start with you, Alan. What do you think is going to come of this?
Well, I think if he tries to pull a national emergency stunt on this, I think that that may be an impeachable offense. I think the man is who's it? Tony D'Angelo set up a Facebook site called the Mad President.
Oh yeah.
I think he's totally unhinged.
He is.
And I wake up every morning and there's always something new. Today he was saying how he feels the pain of the people he's put out of work with the shutdown.
Well, he makes stuff up.
He's never felt pain for anybody his entire life.
No, and he's now calling it a strike, not a furlough.
Yeah, and basically, the man, every time he opens his mouth, nothing but lies come out of it. I just finished a book by a guy named Luke Carding it's called Collusion. It goes into detail his obligations with the Russians because they were the only people who would lend him money anymore after they stopped here,
exactly right.
And Deutsche Bank stopped.
That's right.
And he is so enthralled to Putin and company that it's beyond belief. I just wake up every day. I'm 75 now. I just wake up every day, and he's still president. And my goal in life right now is to outlive the bastard.
That's right. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do. Yep.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not he will last until 2020.
I hope not. I hope that.
With that diet, it's amazing he's made it this far.
Well,
there's a line. There's an opposite. There's a line in an Odd Couple episode where a doctor says to Felix, he says, "Unger, in the world of ulcers, you're what's known as a carrier." He gives ulcers, Trump. He doesn't get them. He gives them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question is he going to make it till 2020?
Well, the Democrats are going to go after him. Mueller's going to go after him. At some point, Mitch McConnell's going to look himself in the mirror and say, this is going to be totally destructive to the Republican Party. The moment Mitch McConnell does that, Trump is done.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right.
You wonder where that line in the sand is. I mean, after all that's already happened in the first 2 years of Trumpdom, you would think at some point the line I can't get over. They asked him about how the tax cuts are actually bloating the deficit, and how it's going to sort of boomerang against the American economy in like 2022 or something like that. And he matter-of-factly said, "Well, I'll be gone by then." Meaning, he'll probably be voted out of office, or it's not going to be his problem. That's a
selfish prick that he is.
Right.
That's absolutely for sure. The funny thing about Trump that people don't understand is that everything he's done is either fraudulent, as in Trump University, or that Trump charity that he had, which was a total fraud, or everything else he's done, he's gone bankrupt. So to think that he's going to bankrupt...
How do you go bankrupt on a casino?
He went bankrupt 4 or 5 or 6 times on the various things he did.
Yeah, the banks here used to bail him out, and the Deutsche Bank bailed him out, and now it's the Russians that bail him. The Russians have bought an awful lot of condos in Trump Tower and some of his other major rental properties.
Trump has been spouting things. You know the thing about Montenegro that he was talking about? How vicious the Montenegros are? Putin
he probably meant Negroes.
No. Putin wants to bring Montenegro into the Russian orbit. And so this is something that Putin has been whispering in Trump's ear. Nobody else is talking about Montenegro.
Montenegro is part of the old Yugoslavia. It's on the Adriatic Sea.
And it's an independent country.
It's an independent country, and it's too far it's not like next door to Russia like Ukraine or some of these other places are.
But to hear Trump talk about it, this is a guy who's never read a book in his entire life, though I have to tell you, he kept Mein Kampf next to his bed at night.
He never wrote one either.
Never wrote one, never read one.
To have that book on books on tape.
Mein Kampf on books on tape. That's pretty funny.
He made one true statement. He said, He said his 2 years so far have been unbelievable. That's a true statement.
Unbelievable, yes.
Yeah, that's
well. What I find a little bit
there. You got to give him that.
Yeah, what I find a little bit disturbing is that he got elected with like 48% of the popular vote, and he still has a rating of like 40 or 41%. It's like after 2 years of this, and he's only down to 40%. There's people out there that
40%. Diane, it's not 40%. It's more like.
It's not 40%.
It is not 40%. Don't you believe that for a moment? Women are leaving this guy. Even Republican women are leaving this guy faster than you can imagine.
You think the polling's a little bit biased?
If we had an election today, the Republicans would be out of both the Senate and the House. You saw what happened in the midterms. 40 different Democrats ended up winning in the House. It's just astounding. I mean, that's astounding. And if they ran another election, the same thing would happen. I mean, with this shutdown of the government, there are 800,000 people who are now struggling to pay their mortgages and their rent. How many of those people are Republicans? And how many of those people do you think are going to vote Republican next time?
Right.
And Trump says, "We'll make a deal with the landlord. Go in and do some painting."
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what Trump said to them.
Can you imagine that?
It's just a crazy thing. I mean, everybody who gets close to Trump ends up in ruin, and I mean in jail or broke.
It's called touch of evil.
It is the touch of evil. It absolutely is. And as far as we go along, farther and farther, it's just going to get worse and worse because Mueller's going to come down on him like a ton of bricks, and the Democrats in the House are going to just drive him crazy. So cross your fingers that he doesn't drop an atomic bomb on England.
Another brilliant one he came out with today. If anybody else was president, we'd be at war with North Korea now. That's another one of his gems today.
Well, I'll tell you something. He has never uttered a true statement in his entire life.
I know, we know that.
Absolute fantasy. He was
an acolyte of Roy Cohn.
He is. No,
yeah.
He is.
I read a biography of Roy Cohn, full biography that was written 30 years ago, and the last part of it, Trump is very prominently mentioned.
Without a doubt. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is where Trump learned his negotiating skills.
Yeah.
I know. And with that, folks, I'm going off to the Golden Globes. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Stay healthy.
Diane, do wonderful with your book. I look forward to seeing it. Ralphie, as always, have a great week. You too, Alan. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
And I will say thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, Ralph, I need to talk to you offline.
Radio Network.
Ralph, you got a minute offline?
Off the air. And thanks again, everybody. Diane, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good night.
Be well.
Ralph?
Wait a second.
Okay.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.